Yeah. So we'll start on the second line on page Kuf Chof Aleph. We're focused on Rotzen. Rotzen, as distinct from other koiches, in the fact that Rotzen is what's called koich makifi, not koich pnimi. In translation, pnimi means internalized, makifi means encompassing. It's also a koyach, and it has an effect. But its effect is not by imbuing itself into the object that it is affecting, or into the keli. Its effect is by being there. By being there, it affects it. It's makif. So we started on this issue. As I said, we are on the second line in Peish Kuf Chof Aleph. Mashe ein kein harotzen, where the rotzen is different. Different than what? Different the other koiches that do process via being inserted in building kelim. The primary koyach for this is koyach ha-seichel. And in seichel, this is where it's a little subtle, but nonetheless it is most blatant, most significant in the fact that let's say the koyach ha-hiluch, the koyach of walking, or koyach of ksivo, and all these physical koyachs. These physical koyachs have indeed very specific functions. Koyach ha-hiluch is in the feet because only feet can walk, and all you need is the feet for walking. You don't need anything else. When you walk on the feet walking, the hands are not walking. So there we understand why this is what's called the koyach pnimi. Seichel affects the whole, in every aspect of the person. Seichel imbues itself into the hands, into the feet, into the mouth, into the eyes, into everything. So in a certain sense, seichel is also all over the place. And the one who is saying, hey, this is not koyach pnimi, this is not something which is contained in a certain place, it affects everything. And this is the marvelous thing about seichel. This is why it's used as an example, always as a matter of focus. So that you should not think that koyach pnimi means except a very limited koyach that has only a limited function, that can only be performed by one part of the body. Seichel is everywhere. And yet, it is everywhere where via, from the nefesh, it first comes into the brain. And therefore, koyach is in the category of seichel of koyach pnimi. An internalized koyach. Pnimi in the sense because the koyach is imbued in the brain exclusively, although it functions everywhere. But it is in the brain that the seichel is fully functional. Because only the brain is sensitive to the seichel aspect. The directives coming from seichel, such as sit here, eat like this, write like this, these directives can be transmitted throughout to all the different koiches. In the hands to write and the feet to walk and so forth. But the oil haseichel, that's what we spoke about yesterday, the significance that seichel carries, the compelling element of seichel, not the result, the functional result, but the compelling element. What's behind it? Why? The reality that seichel brings. This is only in the brain. This is why it turns out to understand seichel as a koach pnimi, that itself is a challenge. Because as far as we're concerned, seichel is everywhere, everything. Yes, it is everywhere via the station of the brain. It is indeed an neshama quality, effect. And the proof is, this is the important thing to understand. This is important. It's obvious, nonetheless, this helps us to understand. Every animal has a brain. And every animal has a nefesh. It's alive. And not only that, but some animals manifest a certain aspect of brain power. If an animal wants to get to something, he finds a way to get there, which requires conniving sometimes. We can mention to you the story that I remember Bochum was standing there and they were completely out of sorts. They noticed a certain animal was standing there by the banks of a waterway, and he was throwing pieces of food, and the fish would come up and catch to take this piece of food from on top of the water, and this animal would catch the fish. It was doing conniving, was doing a seichel process to catch the fish. It's mamash seichel. And yet we say seichel is exclusively a human quality. The animal does not have seichel. That is a challenge in itself. Why is this not seichel? So this we'll take up another time, but just want to point out, seichel is really a non-encompassing koyach. In the human beings, the seichel, and this is perhaps what we could say the difference in an animal and a human being. The human being seichel affects every one of his actions.
To remain on this call, press 1. Returning to the conference room.
Every one of his actions it affects. How he sits, how he walks, how he looks at things. And at the same time, yet we say, this is an oil haseichel that is captured only by the brain. So we spoke about it. I want to speak about it more. It's very important, very significant. Yes, how he sits is designed by the seichel. and how he walks and how he greets people and so forth. This is all about seichel. And we said, lahavdil, by animals we find similar actions that also show, so to speak, a contemplation, a method. What is the essence of seichel that we say is human exclusively? And that is mislavish only in the brain, not anywhere else. And the principle in this is the human being does things in a certain way, in the right way. We eat with a fork or with a spoon, and we eat sitting by a table. We're doing things the right way. The reason we do things the right way is not merely because that is practical. It's more convenient. If you eat with a spoon, you won't spill, and it'll be neat, and you'll be able to eat neatly, or with a fork and so forth. This is not seichel. This, animals also can learn how to eat in the proper way. Seichel is not how you do it. Seichel is why you do it. What's behind it? Why does it have to be the right way? The animal also does things the right way in its own world. But the animal does it the right thing because that's the only way it can be done. The human being does it the right way because it's the right way to do it. Not for practical purposes alone. I don't have to elaborate on this anymore because this is, I think, quite clear to everyone. This seichel, this is a neshama quality. This is not the practical quality. The guf does not understand this. Only the neshama understands it. As we explained the other day, the human being's presence in the world carries significance. And this significance is manifest in the fact that he does things apiseichel, the right way. He appreciates his presence in the world, and the world appreciates his presence in it. This is not a practical calculation. This is a sense of reality. As we said many times, if the world were finished creating at 5.5 days, Friday afternoon when the human being was created, he would stop. No human being. Everything is there. Full population of the creation. What would that world stand for? What would that world represent? Everything is there. All the various creatures, the plants, the birds, the fish, and all kinds of different creatures. Everything. And the smart animals too. But there's no human being. What would the world stand for? We all agreed that then the world would not stand for anything. It would have no significance whatsoever. Why? Because animals are so smart. Because their smarts is all contained within the worldly parameters. The human being brings to the world a sense of reality, of value, of worth. Why was the world created? What's the point of it? What is it to represent? This is sense in seichel, and that seichel is sense only in the brain. That you do things in a certain way, the right way, that every koyach, that can be viewed. You taught the hand how to write and the foot how to walk. But that there is a right way to do it, and it has to be done only in the right way. That is only in the brain. This is called oil haseichel. This is the oil hanefesh as it comes through the seichel. This is actually a neshama. This is not a seichel. But the seichel carries a neshama into the world, into the brain. This is exclusively in the brain. The hand writes in a certain way because the brain gives it a sense of what's right and what's wrong, or how to write. It can take the dictation and direction, but the hand does not sense that if I write differently, I'm doing something wrong. The brain senses, yes. Then you're doing something wrong. This is called oil haseichel. This oil haseichel, despite the fact that this is why it was a seichel as a motion, despite the fact that it's oil haseichel, and it is oil that in fact affects the entire human presence, yet it is called keach pnimi, and it is known only in the brain. From the brain, it disseminates everywhere. Now we go to the second line on page Kuf Aleph. Ma she'ein kein horotzen, where rotzen is different. In what way? Ein lo kein miyuchedes. The rotzen does not have a unique kelim. This is true not only because rotzen affects every part of the person. Seichel also affects every part of the person. And yet in Seichel we say it does have a Kelim Yechedes. And Rotzen does not have a Kelim Yechedes. The reason that the Rotzen does not have a Kelim Yechedes is because Rotzen has a different mode of effect than Seichel. Seichel is b'his lapshus, and Rotzen is in b'makif. Let's pursue this as we already started this far. When the seichel directs the hand to write it this way, it does not tell the hand, write this way because that's the right way to write. It tells the hand, write this way because because that's the only way you can write. In the brain, he has a sense that he has to be the right way.
To remain on this call, press 1.
But in the hand, he doesn't know of this phenomenon of doing it humanly right. Doesn't happen. Because Seichel is mislabish in the brain exclusively. The real essence of Seichel, the oil has-Seichel. Only the brain is sensitive to it. The hand and the foot, they are recipients of that pertaining to their particular function on a functional level. Masha and Kin Harotzen. And here is where we have a chance to understand the difference between that, Seichel and Rotzen. It's not that simple. Rotzen is different. Ein lo kelim yuchedes. Rotzen to begin with does not have a particular keli where it is imbued. Not that seichel, that it is sensed in the brain and then it disseminates its messages throughout the body. Rotzen does not have that process. The haraya, and here is the proof of this. Notice the Rebbe goes to the pains of presenting it through a raya, because this is not that simply obvious. It's hard to understand what this means. As we said, because seichel also is everywhere. But rotzen is different. Haraya, and the proof is Sheharei harotzein peil b'chol ho'ivorim. Since that the rotzein, observe. Sheharei means observe. The rotzein peil b'chol ho'ivorim affects in all the ivorim. Gam be'ivorim achitzonim, even in the most external ivorim. Ivorim that consists only in action, do not consist in sensitivity. To walk. If we said your feet walk, and a robot can also walk. It's a certain movement, and the rotzen is spoil by it can affect even the most external ivorim. And this thing that the rotzen affects the most external ivorim, toike from miyad, and it affects it immediately, instantaneously. Without any lapse of time. There is not the gap between wanting and doing. Ukmoy, as for example, when it enters his mind to move, to shake his foot, or leaves it yodei, or to stretch out his hand. He does it immediately. There is not a secondary stage of wanting and doing. And if the rotzen would have had a unique keli where it functions, where the rotzen is actually sensitive, like the brain, for the seichel, where it senses what the rotzen is. Which would mean, kelim yechedes would mean, shehoyo b'bchinas islapshus, that there the rotzen would be in a islapshus manner in that particular kelim. Where is the rotzen really sensed? In that kelim, just like the brain senses the seichel. If the rotzen would have had that type of a setting, of a process, behechrech, then it would have been imperative, a must. They would have needed she as man, she has some elapse of time in his effect, in other evorim and other koiches. Then there would have been a, so to speak, a directive coming from the Eiver that has the rotzen, sending a message to the Eiver that it wants to affect, and this would be an instantaneous, a very quick time, but it will be a lapse of time. Between knowing and doing, there will be a separate stage. Wanting and doing will be a separate stage. There would have been a necessity of Shehiyas man of a lapse of time, in its effect in other evorim and other koiches. The way it is in the seichel. But the Seichel also, Rabbi is pointing out, Seichel is unique among the Koiches Pnimi. Shahas Shenim Shagam Kim B'Kol HaKoiches. Seichel also, in this respect, is similar to Rotzen, because Seichel is also Nimshik in all the Koiches. Gam, even B'Koyach HaTnuah Shebiyad, even in the Koyach of movement in the hand, B'Koyach HaHilach Sheberegel, and the Koyach of walking in the foot. So, in this respect, Rotzin is similar to Seichel. However, excuse me. However, because that the Seichel is such a koyach, that allows itself to be grasped and imbued, so to speak, in a certain place. The Seichel comes and it expresses itself. It says, "I'm here." Rotzen does not have such a statement, "I'm here." Seichel does have such a statement, "I'm here." Seeing that the Seichel is B'chinas Tfitzah Hislapshus, Harei, therefore, Gam Piyulosei Hi B'chinas Hislapshus. Piyulosei, its effect upon other Evonim and other Koiches, is also B'chinas Hislapshus. Is also in his Hislapshus method. Hislapshus means that the Seichel actually considers the hand and it says, okay, here's what the hand should know about its action. It's mislabish in the hand. It teaches the hand what the action is and how to perform it. Okay, so what is the logical imperative over here? I'd like Rabbi should try to understand the way that Rabbi is presenting it to us.
The example given here that of Ratzon, Blishum Zman.
Zman.
As if to say it's not governed. All movement originates from the head. If not, it's sort of spastic. Put my hand here. It's not without governance.
That's the Seichel aspect.
That's what I'm saying. It's all movement has that.
In every movement by a person there is a Seichel and the Rotz. Yes? And we have to try and identify these two aspects. It is governed.
Okay.
It is directed by the Seichel. But what compels the action is not the Seichel. It is the Rotz. Like I mentioned, the interesting phenomenon. You lie in bed and the clock strikes time to get up. And you're lying there in bed and you say, time to get up. And you reflect on it and contemplate, yes, it's time to get up. You can do it 100 times and it won't get you up. Because the Seichel does not have the power to get you up. What gets you up is the Rotzen. And when the Rotzen comes, you don't have to, snap of a finger. As soon as the Rotzen comes, you're up.
As soon as it comes, meaning it's not under our volition.
What?
It's not. It comes to us, or it's by our choice.
This is a powerful question. The real answer is, I'll just give you the straight the answer is. The Ratzon is there all the time, but we are distracted from the Ratzon, and it is possible for us to not pay attention to our Ratzon, to pay attention to different Ratzon. Just like we say we have Ratzon, Yetzer Tov, Yetzer Hara. What kind of thing is this? Either I want this or I want this. I can be drawn to something else by knowing really that I want this, and I can be drawn to something else. The principle of this is, briefly, it's really a phenomenal thing. How come? If I have that Ratzon, I have that Yetzer Tov, how can I ignore it? We all know of the principle of Bechira, choice. Clearly, this is a whole world all unto itself to understand the principle of choice. The Rebbe has given the human being the power of choice, choosing what he wants to do. Even though he's got an neshama, and the neshama has a Ratzon, Yetzer Tov, Yetzer Hara. And he can make a basic choice and do one way or the other way. This choice element, you say Ratzon is a koyach makifi, it encompasses the whole person and so forth. Nonetheless, there is something above Ratzon. And a person can choose to accept one Ratzon over another Ratzon. Even though she's a Ratzon for the neshama. Isn't that phenomenal? How is it that he is able to choose his other God and neshama? Again, it's a broad subject. The principle is that yes, he has a Ratzon, and the principle of choice indicates that really he stands above all the koichas, including Ratzon.
There's a he that's standing above all the koichos, including Ratzon.
That's right.
Not Seichel, not Ratzon, some other he that's
Some other reality, exactly.
Okay.
He was, human being was given by divine grace that he is a real presence. He has a divine level of a presence, not a human and worldly presence and a level of presence. He's not compelled to act one way or the other. The real compelling element in the person is what's my relationship with God? Not how I feel, how do I understand what the world demands. That is not the compelling element. Where is the godly element in this? This is the real compelling element. Where is the absolute truth in this? This is where the human being, but this is what defines a human being. And since God created the physical world as well as the spiritual world, therefore there is this conflict in the person. What reality, what divine reality do I relate to? The physical or the spiritual? Like we said the other day, the Chitzonius is also a divine truth. The nature, the fact that there is a nature in the world, compelling nature, it also manifests that this is a super presence. Okay, so we went far enough in this question of yours, just to point out, there's more to it than meets the eye. But on the practical level, we see like this, that when a person has all the Bitzoni, it finally broke through, and he has a rotzen to move his foot, it moves instantaneously.